I DJ'd a wedding last night.
Did you? Good to see you, Dave. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us on Michelle's Conversations That Matter.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am so grateful that my coach introduced me to you out in Vegas. It is an honor to finally get you on my show. We've been talking. I've been getting to know you and the work that you do. And I knew that this was a really important conversation to bring to my audience. So I was really grateful that you said yes to joining me. So just a little bit about what I do. Well, this series is designed, Michelle's Conversations That Matter, is really designed to elevate the conversation around well-being in the workplace, but also touch on those topics that all tie us together. And so this is a very important one. And what I get to do professionally is I work with organizations to help them recenter their employees. And that also includes empowering their leaders on how to support their employees, especially now with so many people struggling with anxiety and depression. So that's what I do professionally. And if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, where you live, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, my name is, well, thanks again so much for having me. My name's Dave Burlin, and I'm out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been here almost 3 years. I'm celebrating 3 years next month. And my passion is to connect people and so they can live their best life. That's a mission that's changed over the years. It's been very specific into the veteran community. It's been very specific into entrepreneurship. But overall, I just love building community. Couple of the hats that I wear currently. I am the ambassador for a program called Bunker Labs. We help veterans and their spouses start and grow businesses. So that's a national program. I run the chapter here with a guy named Mario. It's a volunteer role. In addition to that, I'm also the community organizer for Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is coming up in November. And then all of that is volunteer stuff. To fund that passion, there's a couple of things that I do. When people ask what I do, I was like, more than I should. But I am a speaker, coach, and consultant, and I work with people to help them create systems so they can scale their businesses and go on more vacations or start more businesses. And then a few of those things that I do, I'm again speaker, coach, and consultant, but I also I got my feet wet in the world of business as a wedding DJ. I scaled a wedding DJ business all over the Midwest into 5 cities. And now I get to spend most of my Friday, Saturday nights DJing weddings out here in Las Vegas, which is a pretty lucrative spot for it. And even though today's Friday, I DJ'd a wedding last night until about midnight. So just changing the world one dance floor at a time.
I love that. Who doesn't like to dance? You bring people smiles and movement and a good celebration. That's awesome. 100%. So tell us a little bit about the veteran work that you do and why you're so connected to it.
Yeah, so I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I didn't realize how much what I learned in the military would be applicable into the world of business. And after the Marine Corps, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. After that, I became a drill instructor at a youth academy for at-risk youth. I did that for about 6.5 years. And so all my 20s was all military, one form or another. And then my 30th birthday, I left that job, and somebody had introduced me to somebody who ran a DJ business. And when I went for the interview, I always loved the idea of music, but there was something about the office culture and that level of entrepreneurship. Those were the guys that first put a book in my hand and told me that I would never have to work like hourly wages again. And when I started to learn the power of entrepreneurship, it came full circle. And then later, when I was connected to Bunker Labs and I found out there was a veteran program that helped veterans and included their spouses as well to start and grow businesses, I was hooked. I actually got introduced to the program in 2015 when I was in Tulsa, and I fought like hell to try and get a program out there. It was never right for it. It was an early program at the time. There's tons of veteran service organizations out there, and they all serve their purpose, but there's not very many that serve that niche. So it was like the best of both worlds. And then wouldn't you know it, when I moved out here to Vegas in 2018, in less than 3 months, I was introduced to somebody who was going to help stand up the chapter for Bunker Labs out here. And it was just It was serendipitous. So we basically have a couple of flagship programs right now. I'm in WeWork. We have a partnership with WeWork, so we're connected to WeWorks all around the world. But we have a 6-month program where we take in up to 10 businesses per chapter. I've got 9 companies in my cohort right now. We started in July. We finish up in December, and we're already taking applications and verifying who's going to start in January. So the cool thing is they're all connected across all the programs at the same time. So they're not like one starts now, one starts, like they're all connected. So it's like a big class of people that come through. So it's really fascinating to see them plug in to all their resources, and I just get to steward that ship.
Can any veteran apply to be part of this?
Yeah. Veterans and their families. That's another big thing, is we include their families. So I don't know that we have any kids yet, but I think that's something that might be on the horizon. I don't want to speak out of turn on that, but we have a lot of people that do have spouses in the program. We've got one gal in our program right now, Monica Fullerton. She's in the program here in Vegas. She's picked as like one of the top across the country for what she's doing. She put together like an Angie's List for like veterans and spouse-owned businesses, like professional product and service-based. So just doing really great things for that whole community.
So awesome. I love it. I always love organizations that are helping our veterans. We really owe a debt of gratitude for these men and women and yourself. So thank you for your service. So it's great to hear this. So we're going to talk about the power of networking. And I know a lot of people are probably like, yeah, networking, I have to do it. It's something I have to do. Their relationship to the term networking might not be as invigorating as it can be. But I am hopeful that today you're going to sort of breathe new light into what does networking look like, especially now hopefully coming out of COVID or still navigating that. I personally loved your philosophy around networking. And, when we think about connecting with people, you say, stop stabbing people with your business card. So can you expand on that?
Yeah. What I've learned, especially through the pandemic, is that I knew this before the pandemic. That business card that you're passing out, you may not be passing out 2 or 3 years from now, right? I think there's millions of people that are passing out a different business card now than they ever were. For some people, they're passing out their first business card because they got into their role and they were in it forever. And then, entire industries were swallowed up or obsolete overnight. So a lot of time, and it's crazy, right? Because you want to do things with pride. I love pride in the businesses that you represent. I love showcasing people that are telling great stories. But a lot of times what I've learned is I've asked hundreds of people, if not thousands, what do you love about networking? What do you hate about it? And most people say they hate when they get pitched, right? And it's somebody said that I feel like people stab me with a business card, and it's like, I'm going to use that because you know exactly how that feels. It's like, I haven't even asked you any questions, but I'm not just giving you this business card. I'm giving you an expectation to like do something for me or follow up with me or take a meeting with me. And it's like, I don't ever give business cards unless people ask, or like when they're genuinely interested, like, how do I connect? That's whenever I give them. So it's like, I never just like walk right up. Small story. I went to a networking group, and I'll never forget. I was talking to somebody about what I love, books. We were just talking about books. And somebody walked in, and it was a meeting that I don't want to say who it was, but it rhymes with B and I. But somebody saw me that I was obviously new and just walked right over, interrupted, gave me a business card and said, "You look new. You're now a referral for my business," and all this stuff. And I just go, "Oh, okay." She was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, I literally travel all over the country and go to networking events to get interrupted by people like you." And she just looked at me, and she could tell what she did. And then she gives me a stack of business cards and said, "If you know anybody that needs my services, I'm counting on you." And I was like, wow. All right.
Wow. Oh my
God. So now she's a punchline to all of my talks.
Wow. That's like, I get annoyed when I get hit up on LinkedIn with people who don't even know me, who are pushing their, I don't know, their sales pitch on me. And so I have like a very low tolerance for that. I can't imagine. So talk to us about, you have this concept that there are different levels of networking. What does that mean? And what are those different levels?
Yeah. So as far as the levels go, there's an evolution of how to build relationships. I think there are some people that are, I don't want to say at the bottom, but normally the entry level experience that people have networking is showing up at networking events like that, right? They're trying to meet new people. And, I remember when I first moved here, that was how I learned people in the city. But going to events and showing up, that's one element, right? Another is hosting events. Like once you get to that level where you're hosting events, you're now responsible for bringing together much bigger circles of people. But there's a responsibility there. Like you can't just sit back and be like, everyone must come to my events. Like I never would have expected how much I would learn in the event world as coming to Las Vegas. On every night of the week, there's 50 things that people could be doing. So, people really have to pick and choose wisely. So hosting events is a totally different responsibility. Another way that I've seen people go to events and show up is I call them growth experiences.
Okay.
So this is going to be like a mastermind or a retreat or something that over a measurable period of time, could be 2 days, could be 2 weeks, whatever. There's a lot of relationships that happen there because everyone is challenged to grow. A really unique example of a growth experience was Marine Corps boot camp. We were all challenged to our core. And while not everybody I still talk to from the Marines was in my boot camp class, we've all been through that experience. So that builds a different level of relationship. And then imagine hosting those, right? Hosting those relationships or those workshops or retreats. You bring together a totally different network of people for those. So those are just a few of the levels that I see. And then there's principles of building relationships that kind of go across all of those.
Yeah. I can think of people in my life who are like super connectors. That like they're always thinking about who can I connect to who can I introduce to who, and like there are distinct characteristics of people like that are always doing that are selfless, that are like, okay, I think you have a synergy with this person. I think that's a really special way to contribute, and it is like it feels more genuine because there's literally nothing in it for them, but they see it as an opportunity for you and the other person. I think that's a really cool way as well.
So there's this comparison that I found, and it hits on what you mentioned, and then kind of my philosophy. So, what are people frustrated with, right? And a lot of people, when I've asked that question a million times, what's the one thing that frustrates you? They say it's when I get pitched.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, how does that happen? So I really, as I asked that question, and again, this has been a topic that I've been very passionate about and just exploring for the last 3 or 4 years. And what I learned is it's the questions that people ask that give them permission to start that. But what I have is instead of a sales process, right? A sales process, it's normally report questions, needs analysis, some type of discovery, a presentation, and then a close, and then answering objections. Like I was a sales and leadership coach. There's a million systems out there that people have a process for. And I think as soon as they are asked that question, they naturally go into that pitch mode. It's nobody's fault, but it just happens because that's what they have a process for. So what I've done is I've replaced that with principles. And my principles are, number 1, to show up. Number 2, to serve other people. Number 3 is to share other people's events, share other people's content. Right? All that stuff is important. Number 4 is to always think about synergy and how can we make this a long-term play. 5 is to smile, because I always forget to do that. I have like resting Marine face, so I get like normally really focused on stuff. But sometimes just smiling opens up the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Number 6 is to shop local. Like if you can serve somebody else in your network or in your market, we can always get it cheaper somewhere else on Amazon. But if you work with somebody in your market that's B2B, be a client of them. And a lot of times they'll open you up to a whole nother network of their clients.
Yeah.
So there's powerful relationships. So it's just trying to replace that wheel of closing relationships by closing deals and opening relationships and opening and unlocking more opportunities.
You say that there's great power in asking better questions. Tell us about the questions that we should stop asking.
Yeah, the first one is, what do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah. And again, it's not anyone's fault. That's a default question. But most people don't realize when you ask that question, let me tell you what I do. And they'll naturally go into their sales process.
Yeah.
So if there was ever a question that I would say stop asking, it's what do you do? Just a little tweak to that. I always love to ask, what are you excited about? Right. And some people, you'll just see a little disheveled look, especially if they're at a networking event and they're got their name tag. They'll like look at you and be like, and they'll try to frame it like, well, I'm excited about what I get to do and now tell you about my job. And it's like, and that's okay if they're genuinely excited about it, but you'll see that thing. And then sometimes you'll see this refreshing look and you'll be like, you know what? I'm just excited that my son is 16 years old. And after being home for a year, he's back in school. He's excited about it. And he's already looking to see what he might do after graduation. And it's like, cool, let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about that, because you open the opportunity for something else. There's all kinds of fun questions that I ask just to get a razz out of people. But yeah, if you ask something different, you'll get a different response.
Like what? Give a couple of those razz questions.
I love going to a very, very formal event, right? I love going to events, but like when there's a plated meal and things like that, and then I'll be in a suit just like everybody else. But then if I'm speaking, I'll just, I'll tell people that learn to ask different questions. Like, here's a fun question. When is the last time that you got into a fist fight and did you win? And you'll just see a lot of people sit back like, I can't believe this gentleman in a suit would ask that question. But then you'll see somebody else in a suit be like, let me tell you. And they'll just go into this mode. And I know that's a weird question and it's not always appropriate, but there's something about the human, there's something about the human instinct in that. I've heard people tell stories where they defended somebody else. I've heard stories where it was a drunk, crazy night. But I've heard stories where people have fought, where people win, but it breaks down those barriers to say we're all human. And then my personal favorite question is there anything that you're reading right now or that you've read that grabs you by the soul that is really powerful for where you're at or where you've been? And that's one thing that I believe really connects us as people is what are we learning? And that's the fun one for me, because when people say stuff like I'll hear all the business books and that's great. But when somebody says The Alchemist, like I'm like, oh wow. Yeah, we're friends. And like the rest of the world goes away. Like,
exactly. Immediately, that book was great. Oh my God, you're right. Because it tells you a lot about what their I guess like their beliefs or their character, what resonates for them. Because you're like, if that book resonates for you, you might just be a pretty okay person,
Yeah. Well, a movie, you can say, what's your favorite movie? And there's lots, right? And it's easy. It's actually hard. It's hard to find your favorite because you can watch so many and not have the real pull into them that a book might do.
Right.
And I make this joke, and I should have worn it today, and I didn't, but I have created my own shirts that have book titles on them, specifically to like. There's no. I always make this joke, right? If you're wearing a Kansas City Royals jersey, and I'm wearing a Raiders jersey, and we pass by each other, we probably won't speak, or Kansas City Chiefs or whatever, because you're from a different team. we might have all the things in common and we'll never know it because of this jersey that we wear.
Yes.
Now, if we are wearing the same jersey, we might have that interaction to say, Raiders.
Yeah.
but from that, we might form a thing. Well, there's no jersey for the books that we read. So I created a shirt the other day for this project that I'm working on. It says Alchemist, real big.
Oh, wow.
And I just started wearing it the other day, and somebody like walked across the room and just goes, "Have you read that book?" And I said, "Not only have I read the book, but I invented this shirt yesterday to find other people who have read that book." And he couldn't even believe it.
That's so cool.
And it worked.
That's so cool. No, that's so cool because you immediately have common ground. Common ground right there.
Before that, I left books out. Everywhere I go. For coffee, I would leave books out purposely for people to interrupt and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to interrupt." But I've had people cuss at me like, "I effing love this book." And I'm like, if you're going to cuss about a book, we're friends.
We need to talk. Yeah. Let's talk more about the power of being genuine, because that's something that when we were talking before this, just was really prominent in your beliefs. So I think most of us are always concerned about looking credible, looking good, looking like an expert in our field, instead of being vulnerable and being a little bit more genuine. Why do you believe that being genuine is so critical?
Gosh, I'm going to try not to cry right now, because this is a fundamental thing that is coming to life in this project that I'm working on right now. And as we develop the and the core values for it, the core value that comes to the very top is the best form of marketing is the truth. The best form of marketing is the truth. Like, there's all kinds of ways that people can manipulate the truth and all those things, but at the end of the day, they might win metrics wise, but at the end of the day, what's going to win with people and what's going to win through pandemic is the truth. So when I think about the power of that and how important it is to be authentic and genuine, is that's what people connect with at the core of everything, not just where we might meet today. I might meet you at a networking thing today and you might pull that business card out. But I promise you, when my world gets rocked or your world gets rocked, it's the people around us that carry us through that. Mm-hmm. So the more authentic you can be, the more you're going to be able to connect with these people. And I have to pay homage to somebody I met at a speaking event. He taught me 3 of the most powerful questions I've ever heard in life or in business, but he speaks very much about your personal brand. His concept is you are the brand. Mm-hmm. And he has 3 questions. His name is Mike Kim. He's a phenomenal author, podcaster, all that stuff. And his 3 questions are: what pisses you off, what breaks your heart, and what problem are you trying to solve? And if you really get down to the core of that, and that's all you talk about,
right,
people will resonate with that, because it either pisses them off, it breaks their heart, or they have that problem that you need solved, or they're trying to solve that problem in their own way. And that's where we can connect and we can truly make a dent in the world around us.
I love those 3 questions. That's amazing. And you're right. I think if you ask someone what breaks their heart and it aligns with something that you're passionate about, you're immediately going to, resonate with one another. I have the pleasure and I get to actually work with leaders to help them recognize the importance of, being more compassionate in the workplace, especially when it comes to people who are struggling with mental illness. And I think about the power of going first, the power of being vulnerable, the power of sort of telling one on yourself, and how that can create an opening for other people. But it's so hard because we live in an ego-filled world where we have to be presenting our best self and look like we have it all together, even though we're crumbling at the core. And it's so hard because I think that that's what's missing in a lot of instances, is just that little bit of vulnerability, that little bit of being a little bit more genuine. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts around that and around projecting and trying to, appear like you have it all together?
Yeah, I think sometimes the reason why we're crumbling is because we're trying to be something that we're not. Now, I'm not saying that we've got to go spill our guts out and be super vulnerable, but um, like I could take a lot of things in my personal life or professional life, and I could really have a hard time with those. Like, there's lots of challenges that I face. Like, we can talk about adversity for days, um, but if I take all of that I'm struggling with, and I take all that stuff, if I cry about it publicly, then I'm asking for something. But if I figure out what all that means and how that makes up who I am and what I'm trying to do, and I communicate that back through the lens of what pisses me off, what breaks my heart, what problem I'm trying to solve, like I can still be authentic, I can still be me, and I can let that cry echo through those three answers in a way that will help me connect with the people that might help me, right, in what I'm doing, but also I'm able to help other people. So it's all through that lens of what are we trying to do? Because I think what a lot of people see is they'll compare themselves to other people and say, oh, I've got to put that face on, or I've got to put that shirt on, I've got to put those shoes on, I've got to walk like that, I've got to do micro content or whatever it is. And they feel like they try to duplicate somebody else's success, not realizing that the reason why they're aspiring to be like that person is because that person is probably authentic as hell.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all this stuff they're doing, it's who they're being, who they're showing up as.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you sort of a personal question.
Sure.
What do you do to stay balanced? What do you do to take care of yourself? You told me before we came on the air that you've been working really long days. So I'm curious, as a Marine, what is it that you do? What's your go-to to blow off steam and make sure that you're taking care of yourself?
Yoga.
Wow.
All the yoga, and generally the harder that I need to work on myself, the hotter the yoga I do. I know I'm in a good space when I can go enjoy a not hot yoga class and just meditate and be present and be grounded. But I normally find myself in 110-degree hot yoga scenarios, just sweating to death, ready to quit, because that's what I'm doing to kind of push myself through. And when I push myself to those limits, I have to eat better, I have to drink more water, I have to take care of myself better. And it's kind of that balance for me to stay grounded. I'm just now getting into some very specific breathing exercises. I got connected to a group, and we're actually hosting an event tomorrow where I get to DJ at one of the big beach clubs out here in Las Vegas. In the morning, they're doing like a yoga / meditation breathing retreat. So I'm learning more ways to stay grounded that way. And that's how I stay grounded.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's important. I always like people to share, because it gives us ideas on sort of, well, how do you keep your ship a sail? It's always good to get different ideas on what works for people. So, we're in this virtual world. We don't have the ability to go to many face-to-face events. Well, there are some coming back, but how are you, and what do you have to say to people who are still looking to grow their network and they're still looking to meet people, but yet the confines of this pandemic don't really allow it to the traditional way? So how are you personally networking, and what are your recommendations for people?
Yeah. Well, what I learned, I was doing this topic of why networking way before the pandemic. I think the concept came alive at the very end of 2017. I hosted my first live event for why networking in the summer of 2018. And even coming here to Las Vegas, I wasn't even here for a year before I hosted my first event. And I was really proud to get 50 people that showed up. Like, that's hard to do in Las Vegas, especially as a new guy. And as the principles came to life, they were challenged. Like most speakers, like your content was challenged when the pandemic happened. And immediately, the very first Saturday, I remember it clear as day. There was the first, Conquer the Chaos Summit, and it was like all these big speakers. And I showed up at 7:00 on a Saturday morning. Where else am I going to go? I showed up, and that that's the first principle, right? Show up. And I'm not saying go to everything, but go to one more thing than you might be comfortable doing. If you normally go to an event a week, go to 2, right? And when you show up, like I remember showing up to that very first event, I was listening to everybody. And of course, everybody that was a veteran, I made it a point to connect with that person. I wanted to put the principles to the test. And I figured, how can I serve this person? So I reached out and asked to connect. He took a call with me. Wouldn't you know it, this guy is like 80-something years old, old veteran-owned business. He is the guy who created the use of the magnetic strip on the back of credit cards. He automated the New York Stock Exchange, and he's the guy that created the MLS stuff for realtors. Like, brilliant inventor. And like, he took the time because I showed up.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just little things like that. When you show up, the possibilities are endless.
Amazing. You have a podcast too. Tell us about that.
I do. The Dave Means Business podcast. And I'm took a little hiatus in production. I'm firing up season 2. It's been really hard with things opening back up, especially in a city like Las Vegas. I didn't realize how hard it was to balance all those things, but getting back there. And I didn't talk about this earlier. You know, we talked about hosting events. We talked about hosting things. That's actually another level of building a strong network. Is that's a way to serve people, right? Is to connect them and to connect them to new audiences. So the idea of the Dave Means Business podcast is to connect people with some of the most remarkable people that I've been connected to on the planet. So like one of my very first interview was my friend Lee Cockrell. We met on a project years ago. He was the VP of operations for all of Disney for like 15 years.
And because of you, Mr. Super Connector, he's going to be coming on my show.
I forgot about that. That's great. Yeah. So a perfect example. Yeah. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Yeah. And a lot of those people that I've interviewed are all people that I have. There's a story there of why, you know, I'm always grateful when people say, Dave, this is awesome. You're awesome. I'm like, thank you. But it's because of the people that have really poured into me and spent more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And for people like Lee and I have spent hours and hours together. When I spoke at that same conference where I met Mike Kim, Lee came and had breakfast with me that morning. And it was like, that says a lot. And it's just, that's the power of relationship. So I just want to share those people with the world, and continue to meet more remarkable people and give them a voice too.
Yeah, you're awesome. That's great. So what are you up to? I know you're working on some things. Is there anything you can share with us that we should be watching you for and engage with you? Yeah,
and I'm not afraid to say it right now. I have been very quiet about this. So this is the first public announcement, if you will. I'm working on this project, and it's really where I got to bring a mission statement together that I'm very passionate about. I love this community. It was heartbreaking to see Las Vegas, the Strip, boarded up during the pandemic, and it put such a unique perspective in everybody's life. For everybody that relies on tourism and all that stuff, like the city got rocked. And so this project that I'm working on, the mission is what gets me fired up, and it was written through the lens of the Simon Sinek organization. Start with why, find your why. Again, I'm friends of their community. They call me a champion because I share their message. I'm not an official like optimist or igniter for them, but I say I'm their biggest fan. But the mission is to connect the people of our city so together we can show the world who we really are. And what that's rolling out into is a video series called Pursue Vegas. And we're going to be highlighting some of the local stuff that people don't know about. There's all the jokes where people are like, oh, what hotel do you live in? And I don't think I ever subscribed to that. But now, like when people ask, they literally think everybody lives in hotels. But there's a whole world of the local economy here that's overcast by the marketing dollars that get funneled to the Strip for tourism and all that stuff. So what I want to showcase is the local food, nightlife, the entrepreneurs. I want to showcase the local events, the art. Today's the first Friday, so I've got some videographers going to shoot a whole episode for just art and the art culture of Las Vegas. and really show that through a lens that people can see that we're more than just the Strip. So it's working on a project and a whole campaign called Vegas Reborn. So we want to be able to kickstart and show the world that we're more than just the Strip.
That's so awesome. Great job. That's awesome. I was really depressed when I was there. I was there earlier in the year with Spice, about Spice Nation. I was there and I was blown away how quiet it was and how sad those casinos were. I was like, oh my goodness, like this poor city has been hit, like so many others. But yeah, I was so used to the lights and the vibrancy of it, and it was just not there. So really great that you're doing that. So how do people connect with you and follow you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I'm because of a lot of changes and some, I'm always looking to really get more concise with brand and all those things. A big focus is shifting to why networking. So doing a little bit of overhaul with the website, but you can always check out davemeansbusiness.com. And then podcast is another great way. I'm on Spotify, all the places you can find podcasts, the Dave Means Business podcast. And then LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Instagram are always great ways to engage. I really did take a step back from Facebook a little bit just because I realized all the platforms are a little hard to manage. So Instagram is where I have the most fun. LinkedIn is where I generally try to show up and serve other people. But yeah, most of those social media platforms, and then firing back the podcast soon. So hopefully got some great guests lined up.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing yourself and your wisdom with us around networking. Thank you personally for all that you've done to pour into me and to introduce me to people. I'm very grateful to know you. And I look forward to staying connected to you, and good luck with everything that you're up to.
Thank you so much. Thanks. And you're doing great. I think you're spreading a great message, and however I can help or whoever I can introduce you to that's going to help, I will do my best to do just that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dave. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon.
You got it. Thanks so much.
Thanks.